Welcome to Feel Seen Space. We are a digital platform designed for artists and creatives who yearn for more. At a time of massive change, what does it mean to create? What role does artistic expression serve for the individual and the collective? On this podcast, we try to answer these questions by interviewing artists on their holistic creative processes, their work, and their personal journey.
I'm really excited about today's episode because we're chatting with Marie Nahon, a good friend of mine and super talented creative producer based in LA. Marie's journey is pretty incredible. She started out as a model and photographer, then moved into producing major campaigns for luxury brands, plus big names like Disney and Hulu. Now she runs Science, a AI-driven studio that mixes technology and filmmaking and create amazing storytelling content. Marie is all about pushing creative boundaries and blending art with innovation, which is so inspiring to us. Before we dive into this beautiful conversation, I want to personally invite you to join us for our special workshop that I'm hosting at Picto in Brooklyn with Diana Marcosian and Julien Alamo on October 11 called Photography as Personal Expression. It's a full-day, hands-on workshop designed to help you dial into your unique creative voice and take your personal project to the next level. You'll get to work with amazing artists, Diana Marcosian, guiding you through storytelling, editing, and everything from printing to exhibition. Plus, it's a very small group, only 15 spots are available, so there's a lot of room for personalized feedback and meaningful connection. So if you're ready to dig deeper into photography and your creative process, this is the perfect opportunity. I hope to see you there. And now it's time to start the conversation with Marie. Hi, Marie. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Roxanne. Thank you for having me.
We're so happy to have you. So where are you in the world right now?
I am currently in Los Angeles. This is pretty much home now. I've been traveling all over the world, but currently I'm home.
So you recently took the leap of faith. You quit your job. Congrats.
Yes.
What are you working on currently? Any special project or new venture?
I was working at Disney until 2 weeks ago, and I was working at the company for about 2.5 years between being a contractor and an in-house producer, mostly producing marketing content. And right now I've been shifting as the urge of using AI and how we're going to interact with it as human. And I felt like producing and interacting with people in corporation that things were too slow. So I decided to actually separate it so I can focus on creating my own AI studio.
So I feel you saw the shift in production with AI in the industry, something that you saw coming?
Yes. So the arrival of AI in my life came during COVID. I was actually interacting with some friends who were a little bit younger than me. They mentioned ChatGPT. And it was pretty early on because no one actually heard about this. And I just was able to test it. And it was how true and emotional this tool can be. And it was super powerful. I was super curious. And then when I went back home in Paris, I had my son. I have a 12-year-old son. And I was, oh my God, this is his future. This is what's happening. And then I had him test it out too. He wants to be a game designer. He's learning how to code since he's 9. And I told him that this tool would be working great for him because it would just help him to develop as much project as he could. And that's just starting to really lean on AI a lot, using it as an assistant, planning my travels, and then even as a therapist at some point. And then slowly I could integrate into my work. I have multiple conversations. Some of my friends work at Google. They were AI developers. So we had tons of professional conversation about how can I use AI in the production environment. And it happened during actually the strike. So the strike happened in the entertainment world in Los Angeles. And it was definitely against what AI is capable of doing. And they came up with some solution. And personally, I don't think that most of the thing that has been agreed on is not as beneficial as it should be. So I'm pretty sure at some point we might go back and revise some of the contract. And for me, it's like AI is also a form of expression. I feel for creative people, it's an amazing tool because now we're totally capable of creating things faster with more details that we could ever done. Like I've been in my position at Disney, I was the producer for marketing content, and sometimes we had to ideate PR content and need to come up with a creative idea. And we are in season 12 of the show and everything else has been done, you know what I mean? And the way we were doing it, we were going on Pinterest and then now I can go to any basically AI platform and I can just be, this is the show I'm working on, this is the background I want, and then make the image that's going to look like what I actually visioning. So it's a very powerful tool. I'm totally aware that it's actually also taking off some of the processes that I used to have with other people. But I work in an industry where everything is going fast. We have so much project that at some point we need to be super efficient about the direction we're taking. So yeah, for me, it's been an amazing tool and I'm taking on into a larger scale. And it's a huge cultural moment where it kind of remind me where internet came into our life.
Yeah, that's true. Obviously, it's going to disrupt the whole entertainment and the fashion industry, but it's going to change and people will adapt. So I want to go back in time to really understand your path and your career. So did you grow up in a creative environment or within a creative family?
I would say yes and no. My family are from Laos and they immigrated in the 70s in France. And originally my father was an engineer and he worked in a company there. And then my mom was taking care of the kids and an amazing cook. So in some level, my parents were creative, but because of a situation on being immigrated, and also I have 8 brothers and sister. It's a big family, 7 girls, 2 boys. It made us this very matriarchal environment. And I believe that both of my parents actually were creative in some ways. My father used to play guitar and sing and compose, play piano. So I grew up like with instrument in my environment. And then my mom was a cook. She was amazing of making things happen, you know, in the kitchen. I really envy her talent. I know how to cook. She definitely gave that to me. But the whole process of finding new ingredients and things sometimes that she couldn't even source in France because, you know, like it was in the 70s. So she had to be creative in some ways. But I believe that the fact that, you know, we grew up in a very modest environment, we didn't have much money. I was sharing a 1 bedroom with 6 other siblings. And sometimes we didn't even have hot water, you know. So it was a very also survival environment and also creative. So I grew up in this duality of either you survive and make sure you have food on the table, or you're dreamy and creative. So for a long time had to fought on this duality of am I allowed to be creative, but at the same time I need to feed myself, you know?
Yeah, you also had this moment in your career where you were into music as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about what happened with this creative side?
When I was about 12 years old, I understood that I was in this environment where it was like really survival mode. And part of me, like, I always been creative. And when I was 12, I wanted to like go and travel. Like I wanted to get out. I was like, this is not normal, super frustrated. I was the number 6 of 9 children. I was like overweight. I had a very low self-esteem. I was constantly criticized because I was overweight. And then at some point when I was 12, I said, okay, enough. And I always felt like I wanted more and something bigger. And I knew it was out there, but I'm going to figure out a way. So I had a plan. I had a plan to escape and be completely free and able to be creative and, you know, get and attract what I wanted. I remember I was sitting in my yard at some point on the swing and I was just crying. And I'd be like, this is a low point. I don't deserve this. I need more. I need to get out. So at some point, 14 years old, basically, I started my career in fashion. A friend of my sister came out to me and she was, you know, there is this contest happening for modeling. Do you want to do it? And at that time I was like, is that a job? Can you make money? I was not sure. It was nice because she was also kind of like first one to where I feel like seen.
Yeah.
and validated on like what I was capable of doing. So she kind of took me on board and I went to do the casting. At that time I was 14 and I won. It was
Amazing.
amazing. It
Yeah.
was my first kind of like, knew it. I knew I could do this. I won this contest of modeling and then I went up to Paris. I was with Natalia Vananova and another model, Julie Ordon. So I was up against them.
Wow.
But it was nice. It was such a great learning curve for me because that's when I actually learned how to be feminine and also I had to get used to the attention because I was, the number 6 of the family where I was constantly criticized, where my self-esteem was so low to people recognizing me and seeing me. I got addicted to that.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you were 14, starting to work in the fashion industry. I'm sure it wasn't easy and you faced toxic situation. Did you have any experience that you were never, I would let my daughter or my kid do that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that year it was so funny because it was also the year when my father passed away. And I was 14 and my mom had to take care of us. But we were raised on that being hyper independent because the sooner I was not a burden to my mom, the better it was. Right. Yeah, when I was doing modeling, I did a contest and I didn't start to work until like I was actually 17 because I loved the joy of feeling like recognized and being able like to express myself in some ways, even though like I lost, but I learned. And so ultimately when I was 17 years old, I did this contest in France called Candor, and they were looking for someone who could dance, who can be a model, and also who can be singing. And I remember when the producer actually reached out to me, I was already like a sport person who was mentally prepared and I was, this is it. They'll reach out to me and this is my chance. I was like always number 2 or number 3 in those contests that I was doing from 14 to 17. But at 17, I was like, I'm feeling ready. This is for me. So when the producer reached out to me and he was, we're looking at that person who can sing, who can dance, who can be a model, I was, yeah, this is me. With such a conviction. At that moment, it was meant for me. This show was like a very cult show in France. And I remember watching it when I was 13 and wanted to be one of those people. But I never knew I was going to be there. So when I actually was in a contest, it's almost like I already lived that situation.
You felt it in your body. It was kind of a gut feeling and intuition, like this is my place.
Yeah. And I was pretty shy. And, part of me was like, can I take it? Is it really for me? And the amazing part is originally I was not supposed to actually win, but something happened where I believed so much that it was supposed to be for me that I actually won the audience. So when I was there, I did my maximum to create this connection with the audience because the audience was actually the voter. And then, it was actually 3 different phases. First, it was modeling. And then the second was dance, which was totally my weakness. But I trained myself really hard. I really trained myself to be the most authentic possible with having fun and just doing the best that I could. And it worked. I actually did an interview with one journalist in France because the show now, I think it's about 20 years old. So they interviewed the old contestant and she told me that I was the number 2 person who made that much percentage and winning.
So would you say this experience really launched your career or your modeling career?
Yes, it did. So I ended up like basically signing on to contract with the TV channel called M6, and then I signed a contract with Sony Music, and then I signed a contract with the model agency. So at the same time, 3 different career and also passion because I love singing and because of my father. So it was amazing. But it also happened right before the TV reality came up. So it was one of the last episodes of this TV show. And then TV reality came out. And then internet came out and screwed completely the music industry. And so I was kind of like in those in-between world where some of my music producers got laid off from Sony. So then they let me go at some point. But I was lucky enough to experience the amazing time. Basically, I went into this group of the band was the models and I got to be with them for like a season. And so we were out and about in couple of cities in France where we have 1,000 people in front of us. Actually, someone asked me recently, when was the first concert I actually been to? I was, oh my God, I think the first time I went to a concert was literally when I was on stage.
And would you say at that time you found your community or you felt more isolated because you had to deal with fame, with media, with the fact that you were in the public eye? How
Yeah.
did you manage?
So it was very terrifying for me because I was young and then, I basically have to leave home and went to live by myself in Paris. And suddenly people recognized me in the streets. At that time I was in high school and I didn't tell anybody about my plan, right? I had my master plan in my head, but I will never actually talk to anybody about it. So everybody was so surprised because I was always the shy one, not telling anything. And then suddenly I remember when the show came up on TV, it was the day I had to do a test. It was a high school test that I completely failed, by the way, because I knew I won the contest. And before I went to the test, I bought the journal because I was on the cover of saying that I was going to be in the contest. And then at the same time, I went to the test and then I was, what am I doing? Like, this is not exactly where I want to be. And then people start to recognize me in the street and was saying that I was addicted to attention. But actually, it made me very uncomfortable at some level because I felt like I didn't deserve it. And because it happened so fast now, I'm older. It's been 22 years that happened, maybe more. I can reflect, but I remember being in that age, being vulnerable and not having the tools to deal with what was going to happen. It's a lot. It was very, very overwhelming. It was such a great thing to win. But then at the same time, it's like, why do I deserve so much attention? And I always kind of felt like I need to prove myself constantly. So I was working harder. And it was like a very toxic environment. When you start 17, I didn't have the help from my family. So I didn't have much money. So I have to, pay my own rent. I went to this world where they had a very shady business structure where I was literally living with like €100 per week, and I was again sharing, like a bedroom with like 3 other models, bunk beds, and not having enough money to actually pay for my own food. It was really bad. Like it was, it was an environment where, again, I had to survive. But I always focus on the positivity of things. I didn't want to be in another room with 3 other girls that I didn't know again, but I had to do what I was doing. And the other part was always believe that even though I was in a place where it was not healthy, I always remind myself I was able to travel, to meet creative people because nobody in my family could help me. I had to figure it out on my own. So I definitely took the harder path to figure out and be creative. And I really had to push for it.
How did you stay grounded with all the competition, the pressure, and comparing yourself? Also, I'm sure it wasn't easy for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 41 and I feel way better, more confident than I used to be back then. I love my years, mid-30s and my 40s, and I'm looking forward to my 50s. At that time, I was not emotionally intelligent. So, I didn't really cope well with being overwhelmed and not being able to verbalize the emotions and what I was feeling and transitioning. It was so much at that time. So my way of coping back then when I was 17 was totally unhealthy. I had nutrition issues. I was anorexic because I had to fit a certain standard. So it was really hard. At that time, I didn't really know, but that was the way of coping. Every single time I would feel an overwhelming situation, I would just go into the toxic path about I just need a relief because I didn't know how to deal with those emotions. I was really struggling. That was the way I was designed. Every situation that I was on led me to build more resilience.
And at that time, did you have a mentor or someone that you were trusting to discuss all these issues or to relieve the pressure a little bit?
No, I didn't have any mentors. When I started, I had the system, I had a manager, I have an agent, but I didn't feel I had the support that I needed. And it's not only me, it's when I see the industry, it's very bad. We don't have any union, there is no protection. Some of the things that happened was totally illegal in terms of payment, the living situation. I ended up like being casting where I should not be in that casting. A lot of like model agency actually went to jail because of, the Me Too movement. And I was just lucky enough to always feel I should not be in those type of situations. So I felt multiple times being betrayed because the agent was like, "You should go to this casting." And then I was like, "A casting at 7 p.m. in a hotel room?" Back then I was 18 and it was for a movie. And I was like, wait, but I'm not preparing myself. And the agent literally was like, no, 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 you have to go. It's going to be fine. And I ended up like going to the casting in this hotel in Paris. And I went with my book. They didn't send me a script or anything. And I ended up like doing the casting with the main actor. I'm not going to say his name, but I didn't speak English very well. So I was, this is weird. Why am I casting with the actor, where normally it's the director who's making the decision? I don't know. I was sitting on a sofa, but there were other people around. So I was like, okay, I give my book and he's looking at the book. I took my book back and then I left the hotel and I received a phone call from one of his assistants saying, oh, he really likes you. We're going for dinner. Can you come? And then at that time I was like, no. Now I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh, that was totally a way for like getting basically a woman.
Yeah.
And that was definitely not for a movie. I really like that I had at that time a very developed sense of knowing not to go to certain situation and protect myself, in a way that so I cannot be abused. I was challenged, but I was not abused.
It's great that you were aware, and maybe it's because you had this survival mode since childhood where you were, I need to take care of myself and not to put yourself at risk for no reason. Years later, you continue your path in the fashion industry, but as a producer. I'm sure all the modeling experience made you deal with casting and people on set a certain way, right?
Yeah, overly feeling protective, for sure. When you're young, older people can easily manipulate you or make you feel a certain way. When you're creative, the dangerous path is you want to feel seen and validated for what you do. So if you encounter someone who's like older and understand that, and then make you believe that you might have some type of recognition, then it becomes dangerous. So I always withdraw myself from needing this validation and always go back to myself and trusting my own guts and like feeling about where should I go. And sometimes I actually meet extraordinary people. I was lucky enough as a model to work with Jean-Paul Good, an amazing photographer. He's so creative and have such a vision of life that is actually bigger than anything. When I met him, it was meant for us to actually work together because I love his vision and I didn't feel like any threat or anything. So we did like actually 2 campaigns for the Gallery Lafayette. He's such an iconic person. He was saying, no, you don't look Asian. You're not an Asian. I'm going to make you look like a bohemian psychic woman.
Love it.
And, like it kind of like aimed my vision about what, I should be. And that was like for me, one of my amazing mentors. He drew every single shot. And at that time, we were still shooting film. So also being in the transition of film to actually digital. And he didn't have a mood board, but he would just draw what he's visioning. One of his drawing was me being this psychic woman on the shoulder of a girl running. It's such a beautiful shot and very powerful. Working with him was very inspiring. And at some point he was like, Mary, I think you should not stay in France and you should go to New York. At that time I was 19. I literally took his word, and the following week I went to New York by myself with 1 suitcase. I ended up making this decision. At that time my agency didn't want me to go and they were like, you're not ready, but at the same time I was like, no, I just feeling like I need to go. And I wanted to challenge myself because I was working in Paris from 17 to 19, and then eventually I just felt Paris became too small for me. And then the fact that I was allowed to do that decision because of what Jean-Paul told me on set, I was like, yeah, this is again meant for me. So I went to New York and I didn't speak English at that time. I didn't have a visa and I didn't have even a model agency. So I have to restart over again. I have to learn everything. And then when I arrived in New York, it was before Instagram, it was before like Facebook. So I had to figure out a way to rent a place. I actually went to Craigslist, book a room in East Village with this Chilean woman. And it was a very small, tiny room, but it was my own room. And it was actually an upgrade from where I was in Paris. And it just felt like anything can be possible at that moment. And in Paris, in my career, it was actually working really well in terms of modeling. I was making money. And at that time, I actually bought my first apartment. Yeah. And then I freaked out. I bought my place in Paris and I was like, what am I doing? I felt secure. But at the same time, I was like, I'm too young for this. I need to make more mistakes and learn more. So yeah, it was this duality about what am I doing? Am I staying in Paris where I felt comfortable and there is I bought my place, I can just make more money. And I was, no, I need more. I need to learn more. So I went to New York and, I didn't work for a long time because it took me a while to actually find an agency. I was looking for an agency who can give me work and do my paperwork. And it was even more challenging, right? Then because in France, I was French, so I can figure things out. But then I had to learn the language. I was watching a lot of Sex and the City to actually keep up. The extraordinary part of doing my move in New York, it was that it was such a big calling for me because I fell in love with the city. I fell in love with the possibility of expanding yourself. And New York definitely gave that to me at that time. I can just invent myself. It was such a beautiful move. And I was like, I'd rather struggle in New York. And because then I was actually nicer to myself because I was learning.
You're the perfect example of someone that pushed doors, and this is so inspiring for us.
Yeah, it's still possible. Everything is still possible. One of my goals is when I'm 70 or something, I still want to be able to learn something new. And one of my values is actually growth and curiosity. And I feel if I stay in this place of growth and learning curve, then I will always feel young. And we only have one life. I mean, I believe we have one life. So it's better to make the best of it and be the best version of you can be.
Do you ever lose track on your creative projects? Maybe you're a professional artist or creative, but what used to be your passion now feels uninspiring. Or maybe you decided to pursue a safer career path, but you just know you have that artistic side of you that's dying to come out. At Feel Seen Space, our mission is to get you back in touch with your creativity, your flow, and your purpose. If you're ready to feel seen, we offer one-on-one holistic mentoring sessions designed to reconnect you to your inner artist. You'll find all the information at the link in the show notes. We hope to see you soon. So, Marie, you've done a lot of jobs, as we discussed earlier, in the entertainment industry. You started out as being the performer, the entertainer, and then throughout the years, you ended up being the one more behind the scenes. Where do you feel more at ease now?
As we discussed with Roxanne, I didn't really like the attention, too much. I felt like I needed another outlet, but I still wanted to be in a creative world. So I definitely prefer to be behind the scene, but still be in charge. Yeah, I was transitioning from being the performer, the model, the singer. Ultimately, after those careers, I went to New York and I was struggling because there were much more competition. And I ended up working in a coffee shop to actually be able to pay my rent. My mom would be like, come back home. And I'm like, no, I can't. It's too late. It's too far for me to go back home. There's no way. I can just look forward. And so I had to look for different type of format and outlet to be still creative. And at some point, I actually moved from New York to LA. And Again, every single city transition that I had was very powerful for me because it was a transition, next step, next chapter, next door. And it was an opportunity for looking where exactly I can excel and learn. And so at some point in Los Angeles, I went back to school. I went to UCLA where I learned photography because I was like, okay, it was fun to be a model for some time, but I couldn't even make money out of it anymore. But I wanted to be in New York. So I just wanted to be in this learning experience again, so then I can see what I can do next. And so I did like art photography. I did some design. I learned every single thing that I could. Like I know how to develop a film, so I kind of learn about the process. And the more I master it, the more powerful I felt. It gave me a sense of like confidence, but not knowing exactly what I was going to do with those things. And ultimately, I had a photo studio at home. At that time, I was 28 and I gave birth to my son. So I was like, how can I be a mom and also be a creative person and still need to provide? Because in my head, I was coming from this very matriarchal kind of environment where women can work, they can have a career, they can also have a kid, and they can make money and they can provide for everybody. That's the way my family are. And at some point, I basically wanted to be there for my son, at least for the first year. So the first 3 years, I had a photo studio at home and I was building my own book, but I was not making money. I was really struggling and I didn't really like the component of selling myself. And at that time, I was struggling about finding my own vision. I didn't have any mentors. I was, again, doing things by myself. And there were so many different directions I could have taken, you know. But I stick to fashion because that was my world. And then eventually, one of my best friend, actually, she's Chinese. Her name is Lu Yan. And she came during that time where I was like a new mom, trying to be a photographer. And she's one of my, I wouldn't say mentor, but she always inspired me because her past is like very similar to mine, where we had to force things to happen. And she was a very renowned models. And I went to visit her in China and she also was acting. And she also wanted to transition to behind the scene and do something bigger. And she ended up building her own clothing brand. And she's very successful. She's one of the most successful story that I actually know, coming from a woman, coming from nothing. And she came to Los Angeles to visit me and she has a son too. And she was telling me that you have to figure out a way to make some money, you know, because she always knew me as like buying my own place and being an ultra independent. And now I was like in LA having my studio, my son and my husband at that time. And so I was like, you're right. She was right. Because I love being creative, but part of me always kind of felt like I need to have this sense of financial stability. And it's such a like difficult world to actually make money out of your passion. So she was, okay, you actually should be a producer. And I was, again, what is this? And she was, well, I'm going to teach you. And she basically gave my first client as a producer, which was GQ China, and L'Officiel and Vogue. China had this love for California kind of vibe. So I ended up like having those 3 magazines. She told me how to put a budget together, how to hire people, how to do the casting, all this form that I actually didn't know. At first I was like, are you sure? And she was like, don't worry, we got this. And we did it, and it was great. I mean, like, it was very stressful because I didn't know exactly what I was doing. I never used like an Excel sheet before. I had to pull like some permits and renting things. It was a lot, but then, you know, I kind of proved myself that I was totally capable of doing, and it was like another type of experience. And I grew and I learned and I, you know, got like some resilience, and then I got project after project like this, and it came out like super naturally. And I'm super grateful that, you know, she actually helped me on getting this path. You know, as I mentioned, like I touched different industry. And so I was mostly producing for production companies. And then I opened my own production companies. And then I also was in-house for fashion, but it remained in like luxury fashion industry. And then after a couple of years, I was, what next can I do? And I was like, entertainment. It's funny because I never wanted to be a actress because I was afraid. Part of me was very afraid of that world. I was more afraid of that world than I actually was about modeling and music because I heard things. And again, the attention. You have to go to the casting and you have to seek for certain validation. And it was at that time so surrounded by so many male. The director was a guy, the producer was a man, everything was man oriented. And I was like, I don't know how I would fit there. I will feel like I would be just eaten alive, And so that's why I always kind of refused to be an actress. And even though sometimes people would come up to me and represent me, I was like, I don't like it. But then I was feeling strong enough to be in this environment because I was not in front of the camera, but I was behind. And I was just like working with different, creative people. And what I actually learned is that as a producer, my strength was to be able to put the right people together to actually execute an idea. It was so powerful at that time because I always consider myself as a creative person because some of the component of what I'm doing it's actually being creative, but always thinking about putting people together. And I remember in some of the shoots that I was producing, I've seen some beautiful moment where people were yelling at each other, struggle with power. And I always came up with a place of being generous and also honest and let people be who they want to be and never actually guide them into a situation where they don't want to be. And also I'm pretty good at looking at where people struggle and where people wants to be, and also the limitation, because we all limited in some level, right? We have our own belief about ourselves. And so if I hire a PA and I know this PA won't be able to deliver this, I wouldn't force it. It always have to come naturally. So it's like creating this natural environment and synergy so then people can have a very healthy environment to work together. And U2 has a very strong visual. So if you pick someone for a certain project, you won't pick someone who does the opposite things, right? You're going to pick someone who has the similar vision. When I'm hiring people, not only they have to have this similar vision, but they also have to be nice. They have to be positive and nice, and they have to basically talk to everybody on set on the same level. Because what I learned is you never know who you're talking to on set. You never know who also that person is going through personally, For me, respect, it's one of my biggest value, and everybody has to respect everybody's, because we build a synergy that everybody's bringing their own value and also capabilities, and it's a way to forming this blue energy, and we're taking it to create something. So that's one of the things that is very important. And now when I'm in this environment that I've not the right one, then I'm just moving away from that.
I wanted to go back to the fact that you seem to be someone that's so driven. You seem to have from a very, very young age such a clear idea of where you want to go next and next and next. You're always on to the next thing. And not afraid to change cities and change jobs. Were you ever afraid of change, or was it always something that was super exciting to you?
No, it's always exciting to me. I love change. It's something that I can thrive on, because then I learn more about myself. We actually watched a movie yesterday called Defending Your Life. And one of the principles of the movie, basically, they die and they go into this place where they see their life and they are being judged. There is a prosecutor who decides whether you're going back to Earth because you need to learn more, or you're going forward. And the only way for you to actually move forward, because you don't want to go back to Earth to learn, it's to live your life without fear. And I think it's beautiful because, you have to do things that are primary to you in terms of what you feel and sense, and your instincts inside you something, and you have to go through it, and you don't live by the vision of other people that wants to put into you. So you're very driven with your own value. And then the second thing is to also believe that you're manifesting those type of environment or experience. So it always guides me in terms of wanting to be growing and change. And I love change. Change is the most beautiful thing. I don't know, I see nature, I see the flower, and you see a tree, the tree change. For a long time, I saw black is black, white and white. Now I'm like, everything is gray, everything is possible. And it's just giving me so much possibilities, right? I was able to have so many creative output in my life because I was open. And when I leave a situation, I was like, yeah, I was a singer, done, check. Now I was a producer, check. Now, oh my God, there is AI coming. I'm going to be a master of it, check. I just want to be able to explore with so much freedom and no restriction that it's totally possible. In your own form, you're going to be able to actually live those moments, And yeah, live without fear. It's actually, I think, it would be the best thing to do for anybody who's creative, and not self-doubting. Because, when you're a creative person, you're definitely, in an environment where sometimes some people doesn't have the help, financial or the resources. But yeah, if you believe in yourself and you live without fear, then it's super powerful because you become this yes person. You say yes to life, you say yes to opportunities, you say yes to whatever come out at you. And every single experience that I live, good or bad, the experience that I live, they were there for me to learn something. So for me, growth equal learning.
You said earlier that when you got this gig on TV, something inside of you knew that it was for you. Do you believe in some kind of destiny or that things were actually waiting for you on the other side, that it was written?
Yeah. And I also believe that I'm the own writer of my own story. Mm-hmm. Like for now, when I made the decision of quitting Disney, where I was making money, I had a great position. A lot of people actually envied that position. And I was like, yeah, but I felt there is something bigger. I need to be on that wave at that moment. Mm-hmm. And I just made that call because it's more expensive in a way that it's going to give me the ability to actually be more creative. Right now, I'm building this AI studio company where everything has to be built. New processes, new way of thinking, new people to hire. A lot of people don't even know how to use AI. And a lot of people actually are afraid of what it can do. And not me, I'm like, no, why should we be afraid of that? We should totally embrace it and go with the flow.
Yeah, I'm interested in this new AI venture because, as you said, we're used to these structures and these roles that now are completely changed. So how do you structure a company around AI? Do you hire artists or how does it work?
So the interesting part is most people are afraid because AI might take over their job. But right now, I'm in the process of still hiring creative people who knows what they're doing. So in order to prompt, in order to be in the image that we want. And because I have so many different experience, like visual, but also in a workflow and everything, that I can know exactly what I need. So I can do it myself, but I still need other people. For me, it's more a collaborative world. So right now we are in the process of developing script. Like I can eventually write a script, but then I'm like, well, I would rather have someone who really know and structuring things and then how to prompt AI to be able to have the script. Because if I'm hiring someone who doesn't know anything about writing a script, it won't work. So my approach is actually going with people who are open to the idea and mastering it and learning and using that as a way to be able to expand. And one of the guys I'm actually hiring is a person that I met on set when I was working at Disney. And he come from a similar background as me. He's definitely not going to have the same leverage putting himself out there because he doesn't know much people. But what I recognize is he came to me on set and be like, and I feel like you're the one who has some control and power. I was like, good. And then he was telling me that he was a writer and one of his stories was around AI. And I said, okay, but I was pretty distracted with, what's happening on the set. But I said, okay, give me your phone number. I had the feeling that in some ways I was going to work with that person. But I didn't know how because I was not in a place where at Disney I could give him a job. But I was like, I just like what happened there. And I was like, okay, it went somewhere in my head. And then a year after, I'm building the studio and now I'm building the creative team. And I thought of him. And he's someone who's eager, who wants to learn. He's passionate, he's creative, and he's looking for an output. So I see myself through him. Yeah. So that's where I want to be surround myself with those type of people, where it's a clean slate, where they just have to learn everything, which is beautiful.
Yeah, that's amazing. I have one final question that we ask everyone. You seem to be someone who's really trusting their own internal compass more so than anything else. But did you ever have any North Star, any person that really inspires you in your journey, artist or otherwise?
Yeah, and I think it's very important to actually have like those people around you, because we as humans can self-doubt so much, right? And when you're by yourself, there is no way, like all those superstars, actors, singers, or like photographers or stylists are doing that by themselves. They always surround themselves with people. And I love to surround myself with people who believe and have faith and also positive. And so in my journey, I mean, like I actually talked about Jean-Paul Goude, which was number one. He was such a creative person, but also so humble. He stayed humble in his way of doing things and being approached or like talking with people. The other person, it was my friend Lu Yan that I told you, who is a superstar in China and now like a very successful businesswoman. My mom, in some ways, because of the resilience that she taught us in any situation. Sometimes we don't have food, or sometimes we don't have a hot shower, but life goes on. So she definitely teach us to be resilient. And then I would say also my partner that I'm actually moving with. He's humble. He's also a great learner. He loves to learn new experiences and meeting new people and actually learn to be like more also open with people, because I restrict myself with a small amount of people that I can trust. But now I'm broader in the people I meet, in a sense that anybody can offer something. Now I can just know what this person can offer. I see the potential and I'm like, okay, this is going to work. So instead of just tapping into my small resources, it's bigger. And so I'm open to talk to anybody at this point so I can learn. And I think my partner is an entrepreneur, and he's been telling me that the best CEOs out there are the ones who sit and listen. They're not the one who actually sit and talk. They learn, they listen. It's a great lesson for me, because then you just learn and you just sit there, and there is so much to learn from everybody. Now I'm in more like in this position where I'm open to meet new people with their own way of thinking, with all processes, because you never know, you might learn something. So now I'm definitely more open into that.
So he's again like feeding your need for learning and growth and curiosity, like you guys share that.
Yes, we definitely share that. I've learned how to cycle. Now I'm to cycling. And he's also into my own world. I love to do Pilates just to ground myself. So we're merging a world where we open and also compassionate to each needs. And I'm someone who needs to feel like grounded before I make any decision. He's someone who needs to be feeling completely expanded and have as much information. And for me, if I have that much information, I would be so overwhelmed. It's like we have two different ways of doing things. But, we do like breath work. We're going to the studio in LA, and we also bring the kids. We have to merge like two families with kids. So I brought something where we had to like sit and observe. Sometimes I said the best way of navigating the world is to be the observer. So I love to observe, and I actually learn a lot from that.
So cool. Well, thank you so much, Marie. That's it for today's episode. We thank our guests for their trust, and we thank you for being a part of our community. If you like this episode and want to support our work, consider ranking our podcast on Apple or Spotify. And if you know someone who could benefit from this conversation, please share our work with them to help them spread the dream of a conscious, creative community. Talk soon.